Today I wanted to talk about the ketogenic diet. So last week I talked about the perfect diet and is there a perfect diet out there. Now, whenever I was talking about the perfect diet, I was talking about diet as in the noun, the kinds of food that a person or a community habitually eats, and not the diet to restrict oneself to small amounts or special kinds of food in order to lose weight. So that's what I was talking about last week. So this week I'm talking about the ketogenic style of eating, which is actually both, because it is quite a restrictive diet. And in most cases, people are doing the ketogenic diet to lose weight. Not in all cases, but in quite a lot of cases. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to focus on some different styles of eating, talking on here on the Friday Live. I'm going to talk about the Mediterranean diet in a bit more detail, or about the low GL diet, vegetarian diets, or what's more popularly called plant-based eating. But this week, let's focus on the keto diet. Now, maybe it's the time of year, maybe it's because everybody's running around and wanting to lose weight or do something different, post-holidays, post-COVID lockdown, but there's definitely an increased interest in this style of eating. I couldn't count the amount of times that I have been approached either just for some general advice, or I actually have a few clients doing the keto diet just in the last couple of weeks. So I thought a wee summary about what it is, how it works, and the ups and the downs and the pitfalls, and leave you at the end of this with a few top tips. I suppose really what I have found over the last couple of weeks is people coming to me after they've already started it. And that's definitely what you don't want to do, but we'll get to the top tips at the end. Okay, so last week I posed a few questions for anybody who's thinking about a diet, and if we think about those questions in terms of the ketogenic diet, so is this a style of eating that you can commit to long term? I would say no. The ketogenic diet is not normally a style of eating that you can commit to long term unless it's managing a medical condition and it's working really, really well. Is it a very drastic style of eating? Yes, it is. Is it realistic? That it really does depend on the situation and whether or not you can commit to it 100%. Is there strong evidence around the protocols, either good studies or anecdotal evidence from trusted sources? There's a lot of evidence around using the ketogenic diet for weight loss. Some good evidence on that. Loads of anecdotal evidence around that it is very good for weight loss, especially if someone is obese or seriously overweight. There is a lot of evidence around some conditions. I mean, one of the reasons why the ketogenic diet was kind of born or developed or whatever was in order to manage particular types of epilepsy in children, and it is actually a prescribed diet in many of those cases by the medical profession. So yes, there is some evidence around there with it. Does it fit with my lifestyle? It is unlikely to fit with your lifestyle. I haven't met anybody yet that the ketogenic diet actually fits with their lifestyle. I have plenty of people who have actually tweaked their lifestyle around it and who want to change their lifestyle and can make that work. Does it fit with my family? Unlikely. Does it fit with my social life? Unlikely. Okay. Am I prepared to prioritize the changes that this diet will involve? Well, that's going to be up to you. You'll hear a wee bit more about it, and maybe you know something about it already. Why am I doing this? That's a good question. Why would anyone start a diet like the ketogenic diet? Why does anyone start any different changes in the style of eating? That's one of the tips that I will be coming to at the end and saying, like, if you're going to go down this road, you got to figure out really, really, really why you're doing it. Is it causing me stress? It might. It depends on the way that you approach it. Do I feel better and will I get results? Well, there's the question. With the ketogenic diet, if you're looking for weight loss and you do it 100%, you will get results. If you're getting results, then you're going to feel fantastic. So all of those things have to go into the mix. So first of all, and this is really for beginners, so if anybody's on here listening and you're a real keto champion, look, give us something in the comments actually, because I'd love to hear from you. But what I'm talking about here is kind of like a beginner's, what's it all about? So what is the ketogenic diet? So our normal style of eating in the Western world, and this is very general, but our normal style of eating in the Western world is about 50 to 60% carbs. You're looking at around about 35% fat and 15% protein, give or take percentages, around all of that. On the ketogenic diet, you will be eating 5% carbs. So that's moving from 50 to 60% carbs to 5% carbs. That's 10 times less, if my maths is anyway right. You will be eating 75% of your calories from fat. And you will be having about 20% in terms of the protein. Okay. Now, it can change as per different individuals, and believe it or not, there's more than one ketogenic plan that's out there. So it's just working out which one works for you and which one works best. It is really, really growing in popularity, and as I said, there's loads of anecdotal evidence and loads of studies out there, especially for weight loss, especially for weight around the middle. And some clinical and medical conditions. It is a drastic diet though, and it turns a lot of what we're used to on its head. So it's a big mental switch from eating lots of carbohydrates to eating lots of fats and not being able to eat carbohydrates, and actually not being able to eat a lot of the carbohydrates that we're running around telling people and that are healthy. Okay, so on the ketogenic diet, you're not just going to lift an apple out of the fruit bowl and eat it. There'll be lots of vegetables that you won't eat. It's not just the carbohydrates like the bread and the pasta and potatoes and things that you'll be avoiding. So how does it work? Okay, you're drastically cutting the carbohydrates that you're taking in, and your body reacts to less carbs by entering a state called ketosis, which shifts your body's kind of primary energy source to primarily fats, because our body is used to and goes for the carbohydrates first. So basically, you're trying to force it to use primarily fats. And then it'll break down the ketones, and simply put, I suppose, your body just starts burning fat instead of glucose. Glucose is your carbohydrate. So you're turning your body into a bit of a fat burning machine, which if you're carrying excess fat is a good thing, okay? But as your body moves into ketosis, and this can take, depending, everybody's different, okay? So your age, it'll depend how long it takes you to move into ketosis. Males and females move into ketosis at different stages, but it can take somewhere between 4 and 10 days, sometimes up to 2 weeks, okay? As your body moves away from burning carbohydrates, any carbohydrates that's stored in the body, this is whenever you can kind of get one of the first downs of the ketogenic style of eating, is you could experience some side effects. Sometimes people call it the keto flu. You'll get irritability, irritability, brain fog, constipation, low energy, and loads of other just wee bits and pieces. Okay, not everybody will suffer the same side effects or symptoms of this keto flu at the same rate. But I would say that everybody in my experience has experienced it to some degree or other, that it has been uncomfortable, okay? So that's the first thing that you have to be prepared for, because basically what you're doing is you're starving your body of its normality, of its normal source of energy, and you're kind of dragging it like a child that doesn't want to go, sort of a thing, kicking and screaming away from its usual source, because you're starving, there's no carbohydrates there, there's no glucose there. So you're pulling it along and saying, burn that fat or else, basically. So, and eventually it switches over to burning the fat, but it's in that period of you moving into that ketosis that you might get that keto flu. Now, there are plenty of things that you can do if you're working with a practitioner like myself to kind of minimize that. There's supplements that you can take, electrolytes that you can take, but you do have to, you have to really plan for it. So the primary aim of the diet, of the ketogenic style of eating, is to force your body to use fat for fuel. So it's like a car kind of, switching from petrol to diesel, or just using a different fuel. So that's one of the upsides, is that your body then becomes an efficient fat burning machine, which is what you want, okay? Sometimes people find the actual foods that you can eat an upside. So things like butter, cream, cheese, oils, eggs, avocados, all eaten in high, very high quantities. And, your protein in moderate quantities. It means that you're very easily satisfied. You don't feel hungry, because fat is very satiating. So with 75% fat, you are going to feel quite full. And all of my clients who have been doing the ketogenic style of eating have reported back that they just do not feel hungry at all. So they have no problem fitting this in with maybe like a form of intermittent fasting, which can be very helpful. And no problem at all in terms of kind of like limiting their calories. So they're getting 75% of their calories from the fats, and that's keeping them feeling fuller, the protein, and just 5% from the carbohydrates, okay? So you're much more easily satisfied. And after the first few kind of keto flu weeks, you will have plenty of energy. You'll feel good, and you'll have a good steady weight loss. That is if you can commit to the plan 100%. There's no room for maneuver on the ketogenic style of eating. The downside are very, very, very few carbohydrates. And when I'm talking about carbohydrates here, as I said before, I'm not just talking about, cutting out potatoes and pasta and rice and bread and things like that. You will have to measure out your strawberries, your blueberries, and your green leafy vegetables. You won't be eating an apple or potatoes or carrots or tomatoes. Those are all too high in carbohydrate content to be included in your plan. Eating out and socialising will be quite difficult. Now, you get more attuned to it and accustomed to it, but in the first, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, eating out would be quite difficult. And there is no moderation with the ketogenic style of eating. So no cheating. Once you, if you cheat and you start to give your body some carbohydrates, it basically just reverts back to type. And so you might have to go through that whole ketosis thing, getting into that whole ketosis thing again. So you have to be 100% committed before you even think about it, okay? Let's say you're considering the plan, okay? In order to be successful, as I said, you have to be 100% committed. Precision, absolute precision, is essential. Now, in my experience, the ketogenic plan and the ketogenic style of eating works 100% of the time if it's followed correctly. In my experience, it's very difficult to follow it correctly 100%, okay? But once your body has entered that ketogenic state and is burning fat and you restrict calories, weight loss is inevitable. However, it is very, very easy to think that you're doing it correctly, but underestimating the actual carbohydrate density of some foods, okay? Throwing on a couple of extra blueberries, having a bit of ketchup, high carbohydrates. There's sneaky carbohydrates in so many foods. It's also very, very easy to go down the route of making unhealthy choices in terms of either your carbohydrates or your fats, okay? So with only 5% carbohydrates that you're allowed, I encourage all of my clients who are on this plan, do not waste their carbohydrates on something what I would call unhealthy or stupid or whatever else. You need to be using all of the carbohydrate allowance that you have for your green leafy vegetables and for any of the fruits that you're allowed. It takes very, very little extra carbohydrate for you to actually shift yourself out of ketosis. On that, everybody's kind of a wee bit different, right? Some people will be able to kind of have an extra few grams, and you get to know that. You can measure your ketosis. There's a wee machine that you can get, but the cheapest way, and it's probably the most, it's effective enough, is using wee urine sticks. So you just check the colour on the stick And there's a wee guide that will let you know whether or not you're in ketosis, okay? For everyone, I would say it is imperative that you measure and track your food intake for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks. So you'll be using an app, or you'll be following an absolute plan, and you know, the apps will help to get you to the actual, you know, 75% fats. You'll be looking at that and checking, okay, I need to put another olive oil in, I need to put another bit of butter on, I need to, you know, how can I get me 75% fats? And how can I keep these carbohydrates down? So you really need to be tracking. You have to be prepared for that. It's not just kind of writing out a food diary or something. You need to be very precise until you become more comfortable. And you know, most people who have been doing it for, you know, between 4, 6, 8 weeks can stop tracking quite comfortably, and they can feel their body in ketosis, and they know a bit more that they can kind of give or take with a couple of grams of the carbohydrates, okay? But I can't impress upon you enough that it's very, very important that given the low percentage of carbohydrates, you really need to make every carbohydrate count and try not to waste carbohydrates on non-nutritious food. Choose as much of the low carb green leafy vegetables as you can. You'll find that the lower carbohydrate vegetables are the ones that are above ground rather than underground, okay? And having as many of the green leafy vegetables as you can helps to support your good gut health, and you know, prevents conditions that can arise due to low fibre, because you will have a decreased fibre intake. You know, you want to minimise constipation, you want to minimise the risk of IBS, and not wasting those carbohydrates will help to maximise your nutrient uptake as well. So just on a couple of wee things that sometimes people ask me, can you have coffee, can you have alcohol, things like that, okay? So what about good fats? Loads of good fats. There's a question there. Loads of good fats, okay? All good fats is what you're looking at. You're looking at your avocado, you're looking at your olive oil, you're looking at your fatty fish where you're getting your good fats and your protein, you're looking at your coconut oil, you're looking at eggs. So eggs are a big thing. So loads of good fats. 75% of your calorie intake has to come from fats, and for anybody working with me, they'll always be coming from the good fats and the healthy fats, okay? So in terms of coffee, black coffee has absolutely no effect on your carb load, okay? In addition, putting in cream or butter or coconut oil or MCT oil is a great way of increasing your fat intake for the day, because believe it or not, it can be quite difficult to get your fat intake up. Now, I take my coffee with MCT oil, which is a medium chain triglyceride oil. I order a coconut oil, an MCT coconut oil, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Was it up? Absolutely beautiful. I'm not on the keto diet, but the MCT oil is just very good for you. So you can have your coffee. Now, for anyone, I always recommend no more than 2 cups of coffee a day, or else switch to decaffeinated in the afternoon, because caffeine, it has some beneficial effects on the body. It can help to speed up metabolism, and some studies do suggest that it supports ketosis, but it has a negative effect like raising cortisol and impacting on the quality of sleep. I see somebody there has asked about sugar, for example, natural sugar. No. Not on the ketogenic diet. It is carbohydrate. There are a few sweeteners that you can use a small amount of. I think stevia might be one of them. So alcohol, okay. So depending on what website you have a look at, you will find that alcohol may or may not be allowed on a ketogenic style of eating. I recommend no alcohol in the first few weeks of a client's journey on the ketogenic diet. Now, first of all, not all alcohol increases the carb load, but wine and beer and things like that would. But something like gin or vodka don't increase the carb load. But what are you going to have with them? You wouldn't be having tonic, but you can have maybe like soda water, and you know, that might be it. However, whether or not it increases the carb load, it does slow down weight loss for some people, and specifically it can slow down your rate of getting into ketosis, okay? Ketosis also lowers your tolerance to alcohol, and you're most likely to have like a killer hangover the next day if you do. As I mentioned, mixers and some and some alcohols are really, really high in carbs and sugar. And there is a risk of you chancing your arm and using your precious carb allowance on a non-nutritious choice like a mixer for alcohol. So I always suggest no alcohol for the first couple of weeks. Let's get you into ketosis, let's get the weight loss going, let's get the fat burning, and then we'll see if you fancy a gym at the weekend. Then after that first few weeks, we'd look at that. In terms of exercise, you have to be very careful, especially in those first few weeks. I had one client who hadn't come to me in advance and had started the ketogenic plan, was feeling absolutely awful, went out for a run and nearly collapsed at the top of the hill. So for the first few weeks, I would say limit your activity. You wouldn't be going to the gym or anything like that. Gentle walking, because you're going to be feeling tired, you're going to be feeling low in energy until your body gets itself perked up and going. But that's a very short term thing. Okay, somebody asked there about intermittent fasting on keto. Yes, it is definitely both recommended and easier to do because of the feeling fuller with the fats, but definitely recommended. And that's something that I would just agree with the client, what element of intermittent fasting that can fit in with their lifestyle. We're all so very individual physically, mentally, and also in terms of our lifestyle. So I went on there for a wee bit longer than I meant to, but I think it is also interesting. And so let's go with a couple of top tips then, if you're thinking about it, right? I would always say go back to those questions that I outlined at the start. Okay, why you're doing this, is it realistic? How much weight did you have to lose? Is there another style of eating that might suit you better? All of those things. If you then are really serious about it, talk to an expert, talk to somebody who is qualified nutritionally, me, who has studied for a long term, for a long time, the good sides, the bad sides, and is going to be able to look at your individuality holistically and bring everything in. And just on that, I suppose, just in case I forget to mention it, there are a number of either conditions or people who the ketogenic diet and style of eating will not suit. So somebody who has kidney damage, liver damage, pancreatic condition, at risk for heart disease, type 1 diabetes generally doesn't suit. If you've no gallbladder, it generally won't suit you. The pregnancy, or if you're breastfeeding, it won't suit. So those are things that I would be talking through with somebody. So I really hope by now that you wouldn't consider doing the ketogenic diet without talking to an expert. Okay, if you're determined, then enlist support, make the investment, and see somebody either 1-to-1 or with a plan. Okay, and then you're going to plan it out. So don't go into it just quickly and just without thinking it and planning it out. Generally with clients, I will always encourage them to have a 1 or 2 week lead-in time where they're starting to first of all reduce their carb intake so that it's not such a big shock to the system, that they're reading out the cupboards, either giving away all the pasta that they have or whatever else, getting all the stuff out of the cupboards, and then getting the cupboards restocked and having at least 2 weeks of recipes ready to go. You might actually even have some stuff in the freezer. As one of my fictional heroes, Jack Reacher, says, you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. Okay, so what if this keto flu really, really hits you? What if you suffer from constipation? Which at least 50% of the people that I work with would suffer from some form of constipation because of the complete change. Now, these things are all manageable if you have planned for them. Okay, there's loads of supplements and actions and different things that we can take to minimize the keto flu and to either minimize the risk of constipation or to help with it if it does come in. What's going to happen if you have like a work engagement, a social engagement, you're going to meetings, there's going to be sandwiches, things like that, the whole work family life thing. So you've got to hope for the best but plan for the worst. All right, so manage your social engagements. And lastly, know and understand that this will be something that you are going to be transitioning out of. So, you know, you're not going to be doing this for the rest of your life unless you are suffering from a condition that you need this for. And you will be transitioning out of it. You know, you're just not going to stop with these kind of macronutrient percentages one day and then, you know, go back to eating, you know, 50 or 60% carbs the next day. So you've got to have a plan. You'll be working with your coach or your nutritional therapist on that to kind of move you, move you from one stage to the next. So hope you find that useful. And you know, it's somebody says to me, is it the perfect diet? It's a diet that works, and it works for some individuals if they're prepared to commit, but it's not the only thing, and it's not the first plan that I would consider, just depending on the situation. But if it is something that you're considering, I have some lovely recipes, some lovely plans, and I'd be delighted to hear from you. So I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next Friday. And I think we'll go with the Mediterranean diet for next week. All right, see you then.